Hey everybody, welcome to What's Up Wednesday. I'd like to revisit a topic this week that I've covered in the past, but I know it's been a while. And I know a lot of folks out there have probably read the book by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin called Extreme Ownership. These two gentlemen were Navy SEALs who were stationed in Iraq, and now they own a company called Echelon Front, where they do a lot of leadership training seminars, and they've written some books. The second book they wrote was called The Dichotomy of Leadership, which was kind of a follow-up to Extreme Ownership. It covered a lot of the same concepts, but added a little bit of new content. So anyways, the idea behind Extreme Ownership is not necessarily a new idea, but it is an idea that Jocko and Leif really embraced, and they've become, quite famous as a result of the books. What I like about the books is they're really easy to read, and they talk about real life combat scenarios and how leadership applies. At the end of each of their chapters, they have a lesson based on whatever that learning objective was. But when we look at that topic of extreme ownership, which again was kind of coined by that book, I think what we look at is how we as leaders and we as people behave and act. And I think that traditionally in the United States, we had somewhat of a punitive culture. And what I mean by that is when things went wrong, we look for somebody to blame. And I think that a lot of things around that topic are changing more and more all the time. But as we probably know, blame doesn't do any good. Instead of focusing on the mistake, the person who made the mistake, identifying, who was at fault, and then holding them accountable or punishing that person, that's all negative, 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 negative. And I think that we don't get anything positive out of it, other than maybe we find out a root cause, which can help us to identify how to prevent the same thing from occurring in the future, if that makes sense. But when we look at extreme ownership, I think it is a choice that we make as leaders, that we're going to focus on processes and solutions. We're not going to focus specifically on people or problems. We're not going to look for blame. We're going to look for resolution to projects or to problems, excuse me. And we're going to do whatever it is that we can do to utilize the information that we find when we investigate a failure, a mistake, whatever it might be, as a means of preventing it from occurring again. And I know I've mentioned this in the past, but when those kinds of mistakes occur, I call them good mistakes. If we don't do anything with the data, with the results of the investigation or the inquiry, and we make that mistake again, I consider that a bad mistake. But ultimately, when we focus from that perspective of extreme ownership, I think it's really important to be aware that blame doesn't do any good. Blame doesn't matter. And as a leader, I'm going to own it. Even if it wasn't my mistake, I'm going to do everything I can to own that, because whether I realize it or not, I do play a role in the success or failure of the operation, the organization, and everybody who works for me. So think about that. Hopefully that resonates with you. And if you haven't read the book, go to Amazon, go wherever you buy books, buy Extreme Ownership. I think you'll really enjoy it. We'll see you next Wednesday.